at the Rue Bus, a weekly podcast about the Bonnaroo Music and Arts Festival. I'm your host, Sharla.
And hey guys, I'm Daniel.
What have you been up to this week, Daniel?
Well, me and you have been working on the bus, starting to get things ready. I've been doing the paint on the outside. You know, the touch-up paint that I got this year actually matches the blue pretty close.
Yes, I think that's the best one we've gotten yet.
In the past, it's kind of been a shade or two off, and I have to get it to fade in a little bit. But it's working out pretty well this time. I'm trying a new method that has worked pretty well, and we're kind of ahead of schedule. I got the front of the bus repainted, have been getting the top and sides where it's kind of gotten kind of grungy from the rain in the off-season, you know?
So I've been working on the inside, and I have removed one of the tables, got past that. Now I'm working on removing a couple of the bus seats that are still in there, and the whole plan has been to replace it with a futon or a sofa. Well, removing the table was absolutely easy. I literally just unscrewed it and took it out. Removing these seats, oh my goodness, that has been not a disaster, but it has been...
No, it's not a disaster.
No. It has been difficult. I'm not a tool person at all, but I can learn. I can learn.
You walked into that.
I did walk into that. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. Okay, but I can learn to use tools if I need to.
No, Tool was last year. They played for us last year, remember? We were at that show for a while.
I walked into that.
Yeah.
Okay. And so like I posted on TikTok me using like a grinder or an oscillating tool, whatever. And someone was like, "Oh, you're using the wrong kind of tool. That's an oscillator. That's not a grinder." And I found out there's a difference and all this and that. Anyway,
well, we don't know. We're learning this as we go.
Right. Anyway, so I did get the legs of the seats off, and now I can't get the seat detached from the wall of the bus because all the bolts on the seats are like completely rusted because it is a 1989 bus. So all the bolts and everything are rusted, and the seats that I'm trying to remove are right above the fuel tank. So I have to be super careful not to spark anything.
Yeah, please don't blow it up.
Because I don't want to cause any explosion, obviously.
So if all of those episodes of King of the Hill have taught you anything, it should just be that you need some WD-40 to get that off. To get those bolts loosened up. You tried that?
I've tried that.
Did you try opening your WD-40 with WD-40?
Oh my goodness, stop. No, that was the first thing I tried, clearly.
Brooklyn's supposed to come try to help you with this, and then we got our friend Rick, who has every tool in the book that might be able to help you as well.
I think Brooklyn has some better tools than I do.
Okay, well.
That she borrowed. Yeah.
Update us on that next week.
Yes, I will.
But yeah, things are going good. We'll take it around on a couple of test drives here in the next month or so after it really warms up. Well, it is, really. I mean, it's April now. It's been getting up into the 70s every day, so we'll be able to do that on a free weekend before too long. All right, now, Sharla, and, well, for everybody else, too, we have had a slight programming change for the podcast. I had hoped that we were going to have on Miss Kelsey from the Bonnaroo Works Fund, but as many of you might have heard, it's been a tough week or two in Nashville. Kelsey is very involved in Nashville, and she kind of felt like it wasn't really the best time to talk about something really positive with the Works Fund, since she really wanted to make sure that she painted it up in the most positive light. And if you heard what's going on in Nashville in the past week or so, you probably are a little understanding of that. So she sent along word that she will be back. She's going to be here in a couple of weeks or a month or so. And she told me that she should have some juicy info on what's planning with the Works Fund and in Planet Rue. I did want to talk about that whole Nashville thing very briefly, just for a moment. I think in the wake of what happened at that school near Green Hills, a lot of people get to the point where they want to point fingers or become angry at somebody. I want to stress to everyone, please continue to radiate positivity. There are, unfortunately, are going to be a lot of trans people who are going to continue to get a lot of hate because of what happened in Nashville. And y'all know by now, we will not stand for that. If you want to find anybody to point fingers at and raise your voice with, it's lawmakers. And I'm not even going to say it's one or the other on either side. If you saw what happened at the Nashville State Capitol, it was a lot of young people telling old people that they need to do their jobs. And I think that's all that we need to say on that, really.
Exactly.
So we're thinking about all of y'all in the Nashville area. We know it's been a tough time lately. We can't wait to party with you at Rue and celebrate life. But please do what you can to help each other out and do what you can to enact change in this country. Another piece of this kind of thing that we need to talk about, there was an update on the anti-LGBT bill, right, Sharla?
Yes.
Now, Charlotte is way more qualified than me to talk about this because she actually spent a semester or two in law school. So, can you explain to me what's going on with this, Charlotte?
I don't know if that makes me more qualified, but
More qualified
essentially-
than me.
Well, a federal judge essentially halted it right before it was supposed to take effect, like essentially hours before the law was supposed to take effect. And apparently Judge Thomas Parker, he cited constitutional protections of freedom of speech, essentially. And basically it's just halted for now, from what I understand.
Yeah, so in theory, there should be no issues at all this coming June, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure this will go back and forth in the courts, but for now, it looks as if we have nothing to worry about.
Well, from everything that I've read, it's essentially just halted for now. I know that there was a theater group in Memphis that actually sued over the law because it was unconstitutional.
Oh, really?
Yes, George's Inc. was the name of the theater group, and I mean they sued over it essentially, and they're going to have their day in court for it, which is good. And the law is just halted for now. So I guess we're awaiting the next step for it.
Do you think this is theoretically something that could go all the way to the Supreme Court?
Oh, absolutely. It will. Yes.
So this could be going back and forth for a very long time.
Yes. Yes.
Well, for our purposes, this means that we should be pretty good for Bonnaroo and not have to worry about this. But we should keep in mind that this still deeply will affect the LGBT community in Tennessee. So we're going to be keeping an eye on this. You know, something funny that happened the other night, they were having the CMT Awards of all things in Nashville, I think. Mm-hmm. And who was it? Kelsey Ballerini. Am I saying her name right?
I believe so, yes.
She brought out some drag queens on stage with her while she was playing.
Yes,
that was amazing. That was a great way to stick it to the man. I love it. And I don't understand why anybody would have an issue with just people dressed amazing and making a scene. That's kind of what 80,000 people do at Bonnaroo every June, right? All right, Charlotte, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to get into what we are doing this week. We're going to be doing a checklist of what everybody should be doing at this point to get ready for Rue, because we're just over 2 months away, right? It's sneaking up on us.
Is it really just over 2 months?
Yeah, I was talking with somebody about this past week. And, you know, after it turns the first of spring, it really sneaks up on you. So, guys, it's time to start cracking down and getting ready. So, after we take a break and thank our Patreons, we're going to talk about what we need to be doing to get ready.
Hey, you want to blow some money on a party?
Yeah, I sure do. But I think we should use most of it to support the Works Fund.
True.
So I did get a note from Miss Kelsey. She thanks everyone so much for your donations to the Works Fund. She's going to tell you what that money goes to when she's able to come on here in a couple of weeks or a month or so. But I wanted to talk about our Patreon. So, of course, it is at patreon.com/RueBus. You know the deal by now. I think we've got a new Patreon or two. You want to list everybody's name, Charlotte?
Yes, but first I'm going to tell you, even though I tell you every week, so 80% of all the proceeds that we raise through Patreon does go to the Bonnaroo Works Fund, and then 20% goes to
the party
or something fun at Bonnaroo, and you guys get to decide that. So let me list off everyone's names, and I'm only going to say the first names because I will totally mess it up.
Well, we've got a new one. We should say his full name. Daniel Raymer, who is a good friend.
Oh, yes, yes.
Listener and good
Shout
friend.
Shout out, yes, absolutely.
He's a new Patreon this week, but go through the rest of them.
Okay, so Bonnaroo 14, Ernst, Jordan, Bill, Harris, Brian, Keith, Casey, Clorose, Andrew, Amanda, Aaron, Nick, Maddie, Sean, McFerg, John, Kent, Michael, Randy, Josh, Madison, Scott, Greg, Eric and Ben, Kristen, Natalie, Beyond the Hypnotic.
That's
Jace.
That is Jace.
Evan, Jay, Chloe, and Sean.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you so much. We're going to have a big chunk of change and a big check to give to the Bonnaroo Works Fund. In fact, you know, I got a note from Evan this past week. They're doing that propeller contest where if you make a donation, you're entered like so many times. And he suggested that we enter that. And like they're doing this big VIP giveaway. And I'm like, I don't want to do that because that should go to somebody that really needs it. But I think we might enter it where we can win some T-shirts or posters that we can give away to our Patrons or something if we happen to win that. So check that. If you're making a small donation, even if you don't donate to us, you can do that propeller thing and be entered for like pit passes and things like that.
Cool.
It's really cool. When we get Kelsey on, we'll talk about that. But again, you can find our Patreon at patreon.com/Rubus. Sharla and I don't keep a cent. Most of it will go to the Works Fund.
Last year we donated $1,000, and this year our goal is to double it. And we should be able to do that. Yeah.
And that also means that we doubled the portion that we're going to spend on the party.
Yes. And
I know
last
what
year,
the rumors are. Yeah.
last year we had the highest non-corporate donation to the Works Fund.
I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of our Patreons for helping us accomplish that. And again, we will have a good bit for the party. And I understand, I'll tell you some tea before we go into our full segment for this month. You should be hearing more about the campground and Where in the Wood lineups before too long. In fact, by the time you listen to this, you might have already learned about that. I don't know that for sure, but I think that something is coming this week.
Did you just call it the Where in the Wood?
Where in the Woods. No, there's only one wood. There's one tree there. You got to find where it is. Where in the wood. That's the whole idea. I'm going to plant all our rookies full of so much misinformation. We do have to warn them about the bees, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Ricky the cat just grabbed me for no reason. He's trying to tell me something. Anyways, on that note, let's go to our next segment.
So as we mentioned, we are just a little over 2 months away. I think someone said this week it was like 9 weeks away or something.
Wow, is it really? I didn't think of it like
something
that.
like that.
It is going to sneak up quick, especially with all of the things coming up, like over Memorial Day weekend and different concerts that many of us have coming. It is going to be here before you know it. So I thought it would be a good time, since we had to switch our programming up a little at the last minute, to take a look at what we need to be doing now, what we need to be doing here in about a month, and also give just a little bit of first-timer advice. We're going to do another full episode just for them, but let's talk about the timeline of things. So, Charlotte, let's kick this off with what I think is one of your best pieces of advice.
So start buying your items now if you haven't already. If you haven't started buying things by now, you're already too late.
Well, you're not too late, but it's something you want to start.
Seriously, start buying your items now to spread out your funds. Seriously, this is the best piece of advice that I would give any Bonnaroovian, because it spreads out the cost of your items. Because I will procrastinate and I will wait until the week before Bonnaroo, and I will go and I will drop like $500 because I always think of these like tiny little add-on items. Oh, I need this, I gotta have this. No, start buying little things now. When you go to the grocery store, pick up, your pack of liquid IV or your whatever, your Powerade or your Propel packets or whatever you're getting.
I love those.
Pick up a couple packs, and throw them in the cart. That way you spread it out over time.
I do have to call you out. I noticed that you haven't started getting our stuff just yet.
Shut up.
That's what I said. It's not that big of a deal if you have it now, but it's something you probably want to think about in the next couple of weeks. Like, I'll give you all some homework. Next time you go to Walmart or Publix or wherever to get your groceries for the week, just start picking up a couple of little things. Mm-hmm. Maybe a couple energy drinks, those powdered drink mixes, a pack of bottled water, and talk with your crew and think ahead. Like, hey, what do we want to do? How do we all want to share snacks and stuff like that? Get a gauge on the kind of stuff that you guys do want to eat. And I'll give you another pro tip. Brooklyn got me on this one. Before we went to Okeechobee, we made a run to Sam's Club. So find out who in your crew has a membership card to Sam's or Costco or one of those kind of places, and go get a lot of stuff in bulk. In fact, Mitchell taught me something. If you go to Costco, they have a pretty good beer and alcohol and liquor section. So check that out. That's of interest to Rubians.
So I don't think it's just your food, though. Also start planning out your outfits and buying those now as well.
You got any places that you recommend to look for outfits?
Ooh, that's a great question, Daniel. So I've been going since 2013, and I'm big on the outfits. It really just depends on your personal style and what you want to wear. For me personally, I like to look at thrift stores, and I like to look on the app Poshmark.
Oh, yeah.
And because you can buy things used, you're not buying brand new things. And I know that this site gets a lot of hate because it is fast fashion. You do have to be careful with a lot of small boutiques because a lot of those do purchase their things from AliExpress and Amazon and things like that. So it's essentially the same as buying from a distributor like Shein and things like that.
That's really happening? That's kind of shady.
Daniel, that's like that's where you think people buy their stuff from.
I don't know. This isn't my area. Like I said.
I could do a whole episode on that.
Well, maybe you should sometime. All right.
That's a whole thing.
Anything else on that front when it comes to like costumes and clothes and things?
Where you do you. Anything goes at Bonnaroo. You do what's most comfortable for you.
I do want to say...
Literally anything goes.
I have noticed a lot of people really upping the ante in the past like 5 years. Some of the outfits get really elaborate, and you can tell people either spend a lot of time or a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Please don't let it become an arms race. Bonnaroo is not a catwalk. If you want it to be, then sure, you should totally express yourself that way. But you shouldn't feel pressured to buy or make elaborate costumes just because you see other people doing it. If you just want to wear something that you would wear to the gym, that's totally fine too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just don't want it to become an arms race where people feel like they have to be topping one another. That's something that's special about Bonnaroo is people just do themselves. So don't feel pressured to wear something overly fancy if that's not you. I just want to say that.
Right. There's some days I just put on a t-shirt and shorts and go in there.
Well, that's me almost every day. All right, let's get into some of this other stuff. One thing that I recommend that you do is go ahead and look in the attic or wherever you have your camping stuff stored and get out your tent and some of your other things to make sure that it's good to go. So you might have had some mold or something in your tent or maybe your cooler in the past year if you haven't used it since Bonnaroo. Now's the time to go look and see if it's in good shape. So if it's not, you might have to spend a lot of time cleaning it up or you might have to go buy something new.
Clean out your hydration packs as well.
Oh, yeah. Mine was pretty nasty before Okeechobee. I had to kind of put some soap and bleach and stuff and rinse it out really good.
Well, you can Google all different ways on how to clean it out.
Yeah. Something else I was going to recommend, start finalizing who's going to be driving and what vehicle you're going to take. So if you know what car you're going to take or whatever, you can go ahead and make sure that everything is in running order. So make sure that the tires are good. Make sure that the oil is changed before you go to Bonnaroo. Something else I'll give you a tip on, make sure that the coolant is kind of where it should be. One time years ago, we were in a truck and it almost overheated because the antifreeze wasn't at the level that it should be. So start checking on those kind of things once you know what car you're going to be taking. Also, this is kind of a no-brainer thing. Make sure everybody in your crew has got the time off. You don't want it to be the week before and somebody's like, well, they got to get somebody to sub for them at the restaurant or whatever. Think about that now. We got 2 months. It's going to sneak up on you.
So something that a lot of people will do is actually take an extra day off on the way home. So like the Monday or the Tuesday before they have to go back into work, they will actually take that day off because you're just so worn out. Bonnaroo is a marathon. So imagine running a marathon for a week and then, not taking the time to rest or relax. You really need that rejuvenation day.
Yeah, and something that is kind of lucky this time around is Juneteenth is now a federal holiday.
Oh, true,
and that will be the Monday following Bonnaroo, so that works out pretty well. In fact, I want to really encourage Bonnaroo, if they're listening to this, I know sometimes they do, we should have some kind of recognition of Juneteenth on the farm. I mean, I know it technically doesn't fall on Bonnaroo weekend, but I think that's something that should be recognized on Sunday, you know.
Right.
That's an important holiday these days. All right, now, Charlotte, I noticed that you have already started the prep on this last one that we have.
Start walking now.
Yeah, so tell me about that.
If you have not started walking, okay, so Bonnaroo will put the miles and miles and miles. So I typically walk about 30,000 steps per day, and that's not an exaggeration. It's, between 20 and 30,000, but upwards of 30,000, usually around 30,000.
I've talked to some people who had trackers, and they saw like 50 or 60,000.
Yes,
It's not surprising at all.
Yes.
And if you are working an office job or any kind of job where you're staying in the same place, you're probably averaging less than 10,000 a day, if that. So it's going to be a big change on your body. So the sun is going down later. The weather is warming up. So take the time, about a half hour a day at least, to go walking around your neighborhood to start getting yourself ready.
And what you need to do is walk outside in the heat so that your body can get acclimated to the heat.
Yeah, especially if you're from up north and don't get it a lot.
Right.
Once it finally starts warming up before too long, get yourself out in it, as uncomfortable as it may be for you. it will be a lot better for you once you get to the farm.
Right. That's what I did last year. I would get out in like May and stuff and just get out at noon, from like noon to 3 p.m. and just walk.
Here in about a month, once we start getting closer, I think that's the time that you should start finalizing all of your non-perishable food and drinks. You probably want to get your perishable stuff just a few days before you leave. The ice the day before on your way in. But about a month out is when you should have things like granola bars and anything that isn't going to melt or go bad or whatever. Something that we've done is we have a big giant Tupperware bin that we keep all of that kind of stuff in, so it stays in one place, right? You can get one of those things for what, $10, $15?
Oh, yeah.
It makes so much of a difference. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So try that. Also, we wanted to give out a little first-timer advice as well. Charlotte, one of the biggest questions that I see from people who haven't gone to a festival of this nature before is how big is the parking space that they get? Of course, it's a little different for us in group or in GARV, but 80% of everybody is going to be parked next to their car. Can you tell them a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, your parking space is technically 20 by 20, and that's big enough to fit usually a standard, quote unquote, size tent plus your easy up out there.
Yeah, so that's something else that I was going to mention as well. If you haven't ever gone to Bonnaroo or another camping festival like Okeechobee or Firefly or whatever, an easy up is going to be a must for you because the sun is going to be brutal. So you got to be thinking of ways that you can get shade, and an easy up is a great way of doing that. You can get one on sale for what, $50 sometimes?
Oh,
from
yeah.
someplace like
They're
Academy.
Usually anywhere from $50 to around $80.
Yeah. And something else that I would recommend is getting a lot of flags or tapestries to put on the side that the sun is going to be hitting you from. And a lot of people are always asking, like, hey, how do I attach these to tapestries? One thing that I've learned over the past couple of years is you can get those big folder clips from someplace like Office Depot.
Binder clips is what they're called.
The big ones that are for like big binders or folders. You can get a pack of like probably a dozen for $10. When you put those on your Easy Up and attach a flag or whatever to it, it's not going anywhere. We used that at Burning Man. We used that at Okeechobee where there were very high winds. Nothing went anywhere. Right. We were just fine. I'll give you another pro tip. So those of you that were at Rue last year, remember the big storm that came through. And a lot of Easy Ups got destroyed because of that. The reason was the big tarps that go over the Easy Ups basically act like an umbrella or a sail on a sailboat when the wind hits it like that. Something that worked for me when we went to Burning Man and we expected big winds is I bought like one of those military mesh things and I replaced the canopy with that. It provided enough shade, but because there's a bunch of holes in it, the wind is able to go through. So even if you aren't putting that on an Easy Up, that's something that you can drape from the car over to the Easy Up to create more shade. And because it's a mesh, it's not going anywhere. The wind's just going to go right through it, right?
Something else that you can do is you can actually purchase on Amazon screw-in stakes.
Oh, yeah, those work so well.
Up. Yes, you can purchase the kind that you hand screw in with your hand, or they actually make kind that you use a powered drill to actually screw in. And we got those originally for Burning Man, but then we ended up using them at Bonnaroo 2022, and our Easy Up did not budge in that storm at all. So if you can get those screw-in stakes, highly, highly recommend those. And you can get them on Amazon. In fact, if you actually look in all of our social media, therealrubus.com/links, we have an Amazon list in there, and we actually have some of those on our list in there. So just look for those. 10/10, highly recommend those.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It will save your tail. We used those at Okeechobee last month, and there were some high winds down there, and our stuff didn't go anywhere. I had some extra, and I was lending them out to friends next door, so stuff wouldn't go flying into me.
You can put them on your Easy Up and on your tent.
Oh, yeah. Definitely recommend that. You never know what the weather's going to be like. If you were there last year, you know what it can be like. Charlotte, something else that I was going to recommend to everybody is having something that organizes their stuff inside their tent. If you don't have it, the stuff's going to go everywhere. You're going to have a hard time finding stuff. You're going to get annoyed. Something that we've used in the bus and elsewhere are those little storage cube things. You can find those in kind of like the office area at Walmart or Target or whatever. You know what I'm talking about, right? There's those little cubes. They'll collapse. You put a small one in the bottom to make sure that it takes shape.
Yes.
I used that at Oki. I had 3 of them that I borrowed from the bus. I had one for like toiletries, one for my clothes, one for snacks. Worked out really well. You can get those for what, like $5 a piece?
Yeah, usually, yeah.
Yeah, so that's my recommendation. Make sure that you're organized. You're going to be at home in your tent for the better part of a week. So make sure that stuff doesn't get too messy and you know where things are. Something else that I want to warn first timers about is you could potentially walk a long ass way to go to the bathroom or to go get water. We're probably going to have a pretty crowded Bonnaroo this year, so be ready for that. And I'm saying that in part to remind you to get your walking in, but also if you know somebody that's got one of those little camping wagons, it's not a bad idea to bring that if you're going to be hauling a lot of water for camp showers or different things.
That little wagon is like the ultimate Bonnaroo tip right there.
Yeah, that's like if you're like doing DIY VIP, you bring
Yeah.
one of those things. Charlotte, do you have any other tips for us?
I think we covered it. I think we got it right there.
We got it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, with that, this is going to be a bit of a short episode. Do you want to give me a weekly pick?
So I have been listening to this band Colony House. They are playing at Rue 23, and I was not familiar with this band. So don't come back at me and say, oh, they've been like the #1 artist of all time, blah, blah, blah.
Have they?
I don't think so. But
That would be a new one on me if they had.
Colony House. They came up on the Bonnaroo playlist, one of the Bonnaroo playlists that I've been listening to, and they are really good. I think the first album came out around 2015-ish, but they have a very 90s sound. So they remind me of the bands that I kind of grew up listening to in the 90s. So I really, really like them a lot. So definitely check them out if you like 90s kind of music.
Hot take from Charlotte. This one band playing at Bonnaroo is pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you the same. I think I had mentioned this before. I had listened to them a little bit more this past week. On Thursday, you got to go with me to go see Elephant Heart. I am really big on them. I was joking with Charlotte the other day. We were going somewhere and they came up on one of our playlists. It's if you mixed D. Antwood with Closey and a little bit more world music. It is something different than any other kind of EDM that's playing these days. I'm really hoping that they're going to get a big crowd on Thursday because that's going to be a straight up party. So please go with me to check out Elephant Heart and give them a listen if you haven't already.
So I did have one other thing I wanted to mention. On the Bonnaroo subreddit, we do get a lot of questions about, is Bonnaroo going to have shuttles from the airport, or will there be hotel shuttles for this year? So every time someone asked Bonnaroo or they email Bonnaroo, they get usually something like, we don't have shuttle information lined up for 2023. Should this change, keep an eye on our website, etc., so forth. Bonnaroo has not really released, any information about shuttles for this year. So it's looking more and more likely that they're not going to have shuttles. But like the email said, keep an eye on their website, etc. But essentially what I was going to say, if you're out there looking for a ride, there are options for you. There is a website called Ricky Rides.
Ricky?
RICKYRIDES, RickyRides.com. And that is a website specifically for carpooling to events such as music festivals. So definitely check that out. There is a local service that operates during Bonnaroo that is completely unofficial, absolutely unofficial, no way associated with Bonnaroo whatsoever. It's called Rue Rides. You can look them up on Facebook. And then if you're staying at a hotel, definitely always call your hotel directly because a lot of hotels offer their own transit service. So definitely call them and check in with them as well to see if they have their own shuttle. So that's all I was going to add about that.
If you're in that boat, you should probably not rely on anything like Uber because it barely exists in a place like Manchester, and the few rides that are going to be doing that are going to be overwhelmed. So this does suck. Why in the world is Bonnaroo not doing shuttles?
I'm not sure, and they haven't really said. From what I've read, they haven't said 100% we're not doing shuttles. They just haven't said that they are. And it's already we're 70 days out.
Yeah. So I can tell you something from my perspective. A lot of these kind of things aren't really done by Bonnaroo. They contract somebody else out. So maybe it's possible that they're just unable to find a good contractor. I know from speaking to some of the guys that were helping run Jam Tracks last year, Jam Tracks almost didn't even happen last year because, as I was told, the original contractor pulled out with just a few weeks to spare before Bonnaroo, and they had to scramble to find another one. So maybe Bonnaroo is finding that they can't find a reliable shuttle contractor for this year. That would seem to me the most likely thing that's happening. I don't think that they would purposefully take away something that people have relied on for years.
You know, that's a good point, because I know someone mentioned today on the sub that, hey, this wasn't, when I bought my ticket, I didn't know that there wasn't going to be a shuttle. And I'm like, okay, that's fair.
I mean, that's a good point.
That's a very fair point to say.
Especially if they've relied on it for many years.
Right, exactly.
Because, like, what are you supposed to do if you're coming from out of town and flying into Nashville? How are you supposed to get a ride from Nashville to Manchester, about an hour and a half away from there, right?
You know, truly, honestly, the best advice I can give people is to try to find a ride with somebody, to try to carpool with somebody. I know one year we were, camped out in the RV section, and there was a guy with a tent next to somebody, and he was like, oh yeah, I just posted online and these guys just picked me up. And, things like that, I think, is what really makes Bonnaroo. But, obviously be safe about it, clearly. But, I think that would be your best bet right there, would just be to try to hitch a ride with somebody.
Maybe sometime soon you guys could start a thread on the Bonnaroo Reddit about getting people hooked up for rides.
Oh, well, there is a whole subreddit.
Oh, there is?
I didn't even know ride shares, yes. There's a whole other subreddit for that.
All right. Well, I learned something new today.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Sharla. Any other hot topics from the Reddit lately?
That was the biggest one.
That was the biggest one? I think the other big question over the past 2 weeks is where is the Where in the Woods lineup?
Yes, it's where in the woods.
Everybody keeps finding different ways of joking about that or asking about that. So Rufus says it's coming this week, so we shall see. I do know that some announcements are forthcoming because we have a call with Bonnaroo later this week or early next week to finalize some of our things. Ooh. So yeah, we put out that draft schedule. That is pretty much what we're going to be doing. We just need to nail down the specific times and talk with them about logistics. So we should have some more information for you on that in the next week or two. So I think a lot of the campground things are going to get announced. It should be a lot of fun. They are making a big push to have a lot of things happen in Outeroo this year. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, it's going to be amazing this year.
I don't think there's any other festival where you have just as much happening in the campgrounds as the main venue. It's insane. Anything else this week, Charlotte?
I think we covered it.
You say that every week.
Well, I know I say that every week, but I will sit there and say like one other thing.
Yeah.
And then you'll ask me, and then I'll say the next thing, and then you'll ask me again.
Sorry, y'all. This is what it's like when you're married for 15 years.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Charlotte, you have your all-lady episode coming up before too long, right?
Yes, that is on our list, an all-lady episode.
Yeah.
And we have some very special guests for that, so I can't wait.
Fun. All right, that is it for this week. Y'all, please get out there and radiate positivity. The world really needs it right now. We'll see you next week.
Bye.